we can commence with thoughts from practical medical missionary work. And, the Word of God tells us that every Christian is baptized as a missionary worker. And in a way, every Seventh-day Adventist shall be a medical missionary worker, right? And there are many beautiful quotes, and Brother Ramden has mentioned them, the thoughts about the entering wedge of the medical missionary work. And I think I will come to this point later, so I won't mention it now. I have some quotes here about different types of medical missionary work that we can do, that we're called to do, and it depends on our calling and maybe where we're living and maybe the education or experiences we've had, but there are many different types. I have just selected a few quotes from the Spirit of Prophecy, and an important question is, why are we to do medical missionary work? What is the purpose? Medical missionary work is to open the door for the gospel of present truth. The third angel's message is to be heard in all places. So the medical missionary work is to open the door for the truth and to present the three angels' messages. So that is the purpose that God has given us this work. And for that reason, I do not like to separate the Bible or Christianity from the health work we're doing. We try to keep it connected from the beginning, because if we just present health without coming into biblical principles or Christianity, then we are not fulfilling the call that the Lord has given to us. And today it's easy to do that because there's resistance against the Bible, against Christianity. So the temptation is just to don't let the people know we're praying for them, or not to mention the Bible, or we're Christians. That temptation is there, right? But that is not the calling that we have from the Lord, because it's to open the door for the gospel. Let us remember that one most important agency is our medical missionary work. Never are we to lose sight of the great object for which our sanitariums are established, and that is the advancement of God's closing work in the earth. All right, this is a point I thought of when I was speaking a moment ago. Let's look at these two Bible verses. Luke chapter 22, verse 2. This is talking about Jesus. You can see just from being Luke chapter 22 that it's near the end of his life on this earth as a human being. Luke chapter 22, verse 2. I'll just read verse 1 as well. Now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh, which is called the Passover. And so this is coming near to the last week of Jesus' life. And the chief priest and scribes sought how they might kill him, for they feared the people. All right, just remember these words, and we'll go to the apostles in Acts chapter 5. Remember those words, what we read about Jesus at the Passover, or near the Passover. Acts chapter 5, verse 26. Acts chapter 5, verse 26, the Bible reads, Then went the captain with the officers and brought them without violence, for they feared the people, lest they should be stoned. All right, brought them without violence. This are Peter and John, or some of the disciples at least. And here again, the priests, they feared the people. Now, this is the important point that I want to mention. You know, we have a message today that is very unpopular. It is exclusive. It's the pure truth. It doesn't leave room for other option. There is one option. There's one truth. There's one gospel. There's one God. And the longer this earth progresses, the more sharp that message has to become, and the more confrontation it will become to the people. Now, Jesus had that same type of message for his culture, for his day. and the apostles had it also. They not only awakened the wrath of the Christians or the Jews, but also of the heathen. But what was it that kept the priests, the scribes, from killing Jesus? What was it that kept them from killing Peter and John? Well, eventually they did get to kill Jesus. They did get to kill Peter and James. But what hindered them or preserved their lives for a time? Yes. What had the people experienced from Jesus? What had they experienced from the apostles? Yes. Healing. How many people did Jesus healing? Now, the Bible tells us that he spent more time healing than preaching. Jesus perhaps healed maybe 10,000 people. That's a lot of people, right? If I could have 10,000 people come to our sanitarium and our health center in Sweden, I would be so joyful.
Spent more time healing than teaching.
Yes, that's right. Jesus healed, I don't know if it was 10,000, maybe, I'm sure it was in the hundreds, and I believe even in the thousands. Maybe there were more. And because of that, people, though they maybe didn't appreciate what Jesus was teaching, they had gotten something from him, and that caused them to respect him and know that he was a good man. And in Acts chapter 5, if we go back to Acts chapter 3, I don't remember what happens in chapter 5, but in Acts chapter 3, Peter and John, they took that man that was sitting at the beautiful gate, and he was healed, wasn't he? And miracles and wonders and signs were given to the early church, and those things preserved the lives of the disciples, the apostles, and they also preserved the life of Jesus. And it's the same at the end of time, to save our lives and to give us, I want to say credence, but I don't even know if that's a word, but to give us a standing among the people. It's a medical missionary work. You think of a work that ADRA is doing, for example. If you go to a country or a place and you're helping people, you're giving them clothes, you're feeding the hungry, you're setting up a clinic to pull the teeth or to give water therapies and massage, you're going to break down the prejudice of the people. And you may have a strange lifestyle, you may be eating strange foods, you may be teaching strange things, but the people will see that what you're doing is beautiful. And so at the end of time, to break down the prejudice of the people, God has given us the medical missionary work. Now, God has not given us the ecumenical movement to break down the prejudice. And unfortunately, we're putting aside the medical missionary work and coming in the ecumenical movement to break down prejudice. But that's not the calling that God has given to us. And just as God preserved the lives of his Son, Jesus, and the apostles, because they were doing these good works through miracles and healings and wonders, God has given us at the last time the medical missionary work to help the work to continue, where without it, it would be very difficult. You see what I'm saying? Of course, it doesn't mean that some people won't lose their lives or be persecuted, but this is the work that God has given us to break down prejudice. All right, this is talking about in our large cities, cooking schools should be held. And wherever a strong educational missionary work is in progress, a hygienic restaurant of some sort should be established, which shall give a practical illustration of the proper selection and the healthful preparation of foods. So this is talking about medical missionary work. Part of that includes cooking schools. Now, the cooking schools should show people how to select foods, and once they've selected those foods, how to prepare them healthfully. All right? And it talks about a hygienic restaurant to be established. And by God's grace, some of us that are standing here today will be involved in some of these activities in the future. And maybe we know some of this, but it's always good to refresh our minds, isn't it, of what God has called us to be doing. Now, the medical missionary work in England is going to be conducted differently than the medical missionary work in India, for example, or perhaps other countries. But the principles are the same. And I think for example, when we were in India, we were working with the Hindu people, of course, and in the afternoon we started to have a clinic, or like a clinic. I mean, it was just a table and chairs out in the yard or somewhere, and then we had a few herbs and different products that we would distribute to the people, and we would have them come and take the blood pressure maybe, and give them lifestyle counseling. And you know, there was a queue the whole day, and maybe you could go through 200-300 people. As long as you could be there, people were always coming. And if you go up and set up a table in the square in London and start giving out herbs and clay and charcoal, you're not going to have a queue of several hundred people there all day, right? So probably in London we wouldn't want to try that maybe in the same way. But there are different activities that work in different places, and for these I've selected are maybe more for the European culture: cooking schools, restaurants. The word hygienic is a kind of a strange word in connection with a restaurant, but it's from the Greek word hugiaia, something like that. It's almost the same as hygiene, and it means health, actually, in the Greek, ancient Greek, or the biblical Greek. So hygienic restaurant is a healthy restaurant or a health food restaurant. In San Francisco, a hygienic restaurant has been opened, also a food store and treatment rooms. Now, this was probably around sometime between 1870 and 1910. I don't know what year. They are doing a good work, but their influence should be greatly extended. Our other restaurants similar to the one on Market Street should be opened in San Francisco and in Oakland. And I was just looking on Wikipedia to see San Francisco in 1890. Already by that time there were about 300,000 inhabitants. That's a big city, especially 130 years ago or 120 years ago. And there was one restaurant there, but it wasn't enough. And we're lucky if we have now today one in a country, right? Not lucky, but privileged. We're privileged if we have one in a country, but the vision for medical missionary work, it has to be broad and huge. Of course, we cannot do everything, but we cannot just wait and expect God to do things for us when we have to move forward. And so this restaurant in San Francisco, I don't imagine it's there today in the same form, but anyway, the restaurant had connected with it a health food store and treatment rooms. Now, the sanitariums that God has commanded us to build are not to be built in the cities. The treatment rooms at the restaurant were to treat or to help the people that came to the restaurant, and then they were to be referred to the sanitarium that would be located out in the countryside. So it's such a beautiful blue plan or blueprint that God has given us. I think the best functioning system I've seen is in Czech Republic, Praha, the capital of Czech. And it's not without its fault, but there's a project there. The Country Life team has established a big project in Prague, where in the city there are, I think, at least 3 restaurants. And my friend that used to be a student at LIA, he has been working with them for several years in that project. And I was in the country doing some things, and he invited me to come, and he showed me the place, and he took me to the restaurant one afternoon to eat. And there were probably maybe 300 customers they had every day. It was very good food and a very nice restaurant. Now, if they're following all the counsel the Lord has given us, I do not know. But I know they're at least trying to do some things there. And they had 3 or so restaurants in the city, and he showed me 1 or 2 of the health shops they had in the city. There was a health food store just next door to the restaurant, and they had some kind of like a deli or type of where they sold like juices or smoothies or sandwiches also in the city. So they had several different places in the city, and then out in the country somewhere they had a farm producing some of their own products. I don't know, I didn't quite see that. And then they had a building where they had the offices and education courses. They also had a shop there, and then they had the warehouse there by that, and they sell to Tesco and other shops like that in Czech and maybe in other countries. That is Country Life, selling some of their products to those. So that was one of the places where I've seen something that has been able to function quite well. All right, and connected with our sanitariums. Now these are to be out in the countryside. There are to be lands, and small portions of which can be used for the homes of the helpers and others who are receiving a training for medical missionary work. At Heartland, when I studied there, we had the school or the college, and then there was the health center. And it was a blessing because I, as a student, I was majoring as a pastor and evangelist, but I took a minor education in the health training, and I was able to work at to help out in the sanitarium or the health center for maybe 6 months or 9 months while I was studying at Heartland, and it was such a blessing to me. Now, for some reason, the project in Norway, there, Fridheim, it had the health center here, and the school was maybe 30 kilometers away. I don't know why they never seemed to be able to have that close relationship. But the idea also with the sanitarium is the possibility of having a school there as well, so that the students can help in the sanitarium and receive practical training, not just theoretic training. And the sanitarium will benefit from that, and having the students there to help them. And so it's something also that God has desired. Loma Linda is to be not only a sanitarium but an educational center. With the possession of this comes the weighty responsibility of making the work of the institution educational in character. A school is to be established there, here for the training of gospel medical missionary evangelists. See, you have the sanitarium together with the school, and today Loma Linda has that, though there may be following 5% of the council, so it's not anymore following the will of God. Unfortunately, it has changed much in the last 100 years. And but the point is that God wants a sanitarium and school together. All right, God's people are to be genuine medical missionaries, for they are to learn to minister to the needs of both soul and body. And it talks about going out to give treatments to the sick, going from house to house. Now in England, maybe that's a little bit more difficult to do. In India, it would be easier as a European coming there. I would be respected or allowed to do that. Here, it's maybe not as easy to do that in this day. But it's talking about going house to house and demonstrating the principles of health reform. And it says it will do much toward removing prejudice against our evangelical work. Remember what we read about Jesus and the disciples? And a promise that we have is that the great physician will bless all who thus seek to impart the truth for this time. All right. There are many places that need gospel medical missionary work. Plants should be made in these places. God designs that our sanitarium shall be a means of reaching reaching high and low, rich and poor. They are to be so conducted that by their work, attention will be called to the message that God has sent to the world. All right, so the sanitariums are to reach different classes of the people. All right. Another quote from Pacific Union Recorder. Medical missionary work is not to be centered in the slums of our large cities. This work is to be done everywhere. At our camp meetings, there should be men who devote themselves to the work of rescuing those held by Satan in the slavery of appetite. As in our meetings the subject of temperance is presented, angels of God pass through the congregation convicting and converting souls. So here we have, in association with the medical missionary work, the topic of temperance. Do you still have in England any churches with the temperance department? The Temperance Society? Yeah, in the U.S. there may be some also. Of course, if it's a small church, you have one person doing all the departments, so it's not so easy. But yes.
In our churches, I realize it's called the health department, not the health and temperance anymore.
Yeah. In the early days, there was much more with temperance, right? Ellen White spoke to many different temperance groups. She wrote a lot about temperance. And what was the issue in temperance then? Or what was the primary issue of temperance? Yeah, mostly alcohol. The temperance societies were trying to take away that poison, that curse from society. And I don't think alcohol consumption has decreased much in the last years. And, of course, at that time, in her time, it was, I think in the U.S. Constitution, it was prohibited, and if for a while it was prohibited in the United States, then it became legal again. But people are just as much slave to appetite today as at that time. And we need to revive the temperance work. Now, in the United States, Uruguay, I think it was, legalized marijuana some months ago. In the U.S., state after state is legalizing marijuana. And where are we to teach people the points of temperance? We have these energy drinks that are terrible for the mind. So there needs to be temperance work for us today to do in the churches, and that's part of the medical missionary work also. And here we just see the types of temperance she mentions in eating, drinking, and dressing. So we need to be teaching temperance in eating, drinking, and dressing as part of the medical missionary work. And then this one, is it not the highest kind of medical missionary work to show men and women the great blessing, the physical and spiritual, which comes by obeying the law of God? So the medical missionary work, the temperance work, would lead people to obedience to the laws of God. Maybe they won't know it's the law of God, but abstaining from alcohol, for example, that's a law of God. So we cannot separate the medical missionary work, the temperance work, from God. All right, there's a beautiful promise in the Bible, Psalm 104, verse 14. He causeth the grass to grow for the cattle, and herb for the service of man, that he may bring forth food out of the earth. Herb here can be seen as vegetables, and it can also be seen as what we call herbs, the ones we season our food with, or the ones we drink tea from, peppermint, for example. But God gives us the vegetables and the herbs for our health. If you heard, was it Thomas Edison that said the medicine of the future is the food? Have you heard that before? God gives us all these wonderful herbs and vegetables for our health. One of those that God gives to us is garlic. You've heard of garlic before, I think. I was going to show you some, but I imagine you know what it looks like, right? Something God has given us that's very helpful is garlic. And where is your mother? So she can't hear me, can she? If I talk really loud?
I'll tell you what, I'll go
Well, if she needs to be with the child, she was... Oh, well, yes. I had something just for her to do with garlic. All right, this is just something I gathered out of the internet, and it might say something different in another site, but it contains over 400 different health-enhancing chemical components and compounds. And the sulfur that's in garlic, it kills different types of bacteria, viruses, fungi, mold, parasites, and worms. And garlic is a wonderful antibacteria, antiviral, antifungus substance. Garlic is. It's a medicine that the Lord has given us. And the work within the body's vital systems, the circulatory, digestive, immune system, it promotes detoxification, cleansing, lowering blood pressure, strengthening the immune system, and healing. And that was the point I wanted to see here. Lowering the blood pressure. Garlic. And garlic promotes good health. When we have people come to us that have high blood pressure, we encourage them to follow the 10 laws of health that we've been given us, that have been given to us. And in blood pressure especially, we need to follow those closely. Exercise is important. What is the best type of exercise? Yes, walking, and what is the other best type? There are two types. What are the best types of exercise? Yes, say it loudly. Yes, gardening and exercise, gardening and walking are the two best forms, best forms of exercise for us. All right, and especially what we use as more medicine for people with high blood pressure is garlic. And these are just two examples. We don't always record the results, but the first health guest was 79 years of age, a woman. And when she arrived, she had 185/85 with the blood pressure. And actually, the doctor had given her medicine, and she wasn't taking it faithfully because she didn't have faith in the medicine. She had skepticism or doubt to the medicine. And I didn't know that she wasn't taking it, but I didn't say that she needed to take it. But we watched and we monitored her blood pressure over 10 days, and each day it got a little bit lower consistently. And by the time she left, it was well within normal, 120/75. And a lot of that was due because we gave garlic. Of course, there was also resting, relaxing, not becoming stressed. There was exercise. There was vegetarian or vegan food, and massage and water therapy. But what we can do if you have high blood pressure is eat more garlic. And if you maybe don't like garlic or want to reduce the smell, what we do is take 3 cloves. Do you call it a clove? And take 3 cloves and steam cook them for 3 minutes. Apparently, if you cook them just a short time, it's steam cooking. That's meaning you have the water boiling, but the garlic's not in the water. It's above the water. It's suspended somehow, and the steam heats it up. It cooks it, right? Do that 3 minutes, and the garlic becomes more soft, and it's not as sharp, so you can just eat it as it is, and you don't burn your mouth or tongue. And if you do that twice a day, 3 cloves, in the morning for breakfast and at lunch for, in the afternoon for lunch. Now, I don't recommend to mix fruits and vegetables, but I see this more as a medicine, and one can probably reduce it after a time and just do it at lunchtime. But we did that 2 times a day. You can also do it 3 times a day in the evening when you have tea. And that is part of what lowered her blood pressure down to normal. Garlic, 3 times a day, 3 cloves. 2 times a day, 3 cloves. And the second lady was 62 years of age, also with blood pressure higher than necessary, and hers came down after 10 days also, and partially because of garlic and resting and reducing stress. So garlic is something the Lord has given us for good health. And when it comes to blood pressure, most doctors, or many doctors say, the people's doctor tell them, well, you're old, so it can be high. Or with age, high blood pressure increases, but that's not really true. It's just because we're abusing our bodies and not following the principles of health that the older we get, the higher the blood pressure also becomes. But I've had many friends or people I know that have, even in their age, low blood pressure. And if we took all our blood pressures, I'm sure some of you that are over 60 would have something like 120, 130 over 80. All right. Another recipe my wife likes to use especially is garlic oil. Now, this is not something we eat. Some people do something like this and they put it on the pasta or they eat it. But this is for an oil for the skin or for the external use in the body. A cup of chopped garlic, cover with 2 cups of pure olive oil, and let soak for 7 days. And I don't know if that's 7, the number of perfection. That's maybe why it's 7. It's maybe not the most important if it's 6.5 days or 8. But anyway, it says 7 days. And each day shake it up and keep it not in the direct sunlight, but keep it in a dark glass. Or afterwards, at least, after those 7 days, put it into a dark glass. And you can keep it in the refrigerator in a cool place, and it will keep for several months. And we can use that for different applications. I will address some of those applications later. Another wonderful herb the Lord has given us is white cabbage or cabbage, the big ones you eat. We eat a salad and cooked cabbage in soups and dishes. It reduces the inflammations in arthritis, the joint inflammation. It helps with burns and muscle aches and insect bites, for example. One I like to use also just at home for myself is tea tree oil that comes in many cases from Australia. Sometimes some of the products we do buy are not you have to be careful what we buy, right? You just need to read the label and make sure that it's pure. And with the tea tree oil, it should be 100% pure. This is eucalyptus. The tea tree oil is a similar brand, a similar bottle. This is made in Australia. This is eucalyptus oil. The tea tree oil, it's smaller, and they're about the same price. So eucalyptus oil is maybe half as cheap, or half as expensive. It's 2 times more cheap, eucalyptus oil. And I have a friend, Ruel. He is from South Africa, and he's living in California. And this company is called Vivox. And when I started buying it some years ago, I bought it from that company, and he eventually took the company over, and he orders it from Australia. And before, on the package, on the label, it would say maybe 10 applications where you could use eucalyptus oil for insect bites. Well, we can read them here. Insect bites or bee stings, cuts and wounds, antibacterial, antimicrobial, antifungal, it's antiseptic, lice and fleas, sores in the mouth or inflammations in the gums. And I ordered some like 3 or 4 years ago, and he hadn't had it come, and he had a big shipment that was held up with the FDA. You know what the FDA is, right? You have the FDA in England. Yeah, well, there are different applications, but the one that is most accurate is the Food and Drug Administration. Some people say other things about it, but that's the one. Food and Drug Administration. And my friend there, he was putting on the package and he was sending out a paper with all the applications that you could use it for, and the FDA said, you're not going to do that anymore. And until he was going to take all that away, they wouldn't let him import it from Australia to sell. And it's unfortunate that the governments are trying to prohibit these herbs and things the Lord has given us. But, excuse me, now I was talking about eucalyptus oil, and that's tea tree oil, but they're almost the same. Eucalyptus oil, this is this one here. Again, read the package, what you're getting. And it's a nice one to have for pains in the body, and also for the throat, sore throat, and for congestion. It's very good. And insect bites and rashes. I like that one. I have brought some charcoal along that I am selling, 6 pounds for 500 grams. If you want to purchase some. This particular one is not activated. Activated or active? Not activated, but it's very good, even though it's from Germany, from beech tree, and it's can use in drinking internally, externally, so it's very good. All right, charcoal, it's a very amazing substance, and one of the beauties of charcoal is that it adsorbs. You see the here word adsorption, and that is the accumulation of substance on the surface. And just 5 grams of charcoal, which is going to be about a teaspoon, that gives you a surface area of about 1 football field. That's a huge area, and it's the construction of the charcoal is that within it there are channels and cavities that can absorb these poisons and toxins. And we know that charcoal can be made in different ways. Another one that we use often is one called Nature's Penicillin. And there are probably different recipes for this one, but we use grapefruit, and orange, and a lemon. The bio there means biological or organic. And garlic and onion and peppermint oil. And why it should be biological or organic, the best is that you use the covering of the fruit also, or what we call the rind, the outside. So it's nice to have organic. If you don't have it, you can perhaps cut a little bit off if you want to, but a lot of the nutrients are actually in the skin, especially just under the skin, a lot of the nutrients. So it's very good if you can get those. And an adult can take up to a cup a day, a spoonful at a time, and a child up to half a cup a day. We don't eat between meals, so when we use it ourselves, we take it at breakfast and at lunch, and eat maybe 2 tablespoons per time. And I just want to give, as we close here, some practical examples of how we've used these remedies in our own home, in our family. You know, even the medical missionary work, if you don't use it for anyone else, it's worth it for your own selves. Because we use it on ourselves or in the home, in the family. So in that aspect, it's still a blessing, and there will be opportunities for us to share with others. Our daughter, when she was about somewhere between 1 year and 18 months, we were outside. It was in the spring. It was not too far into the spring, and we were outside, and she was crawling around. And later we came in, we noticed that she had a tick right here on her hand. And we were kind of surprised because it was early in the year. And we took the tick away and didn't think much of it. And then later in the day, one hand, she was red, and maybe I didn't want to believe it, but I said, no, the tick was on this hand. But finally we realized that it had to be on that hand where it was red. And then later in the evening we saw she was getting a red circle up on her arm. And we call that Borrelia. I don't know if you call it that here. Maybe Lyme's disease is another name for it. And so we understood that she had gotten that from the tick bite. And my wife had learned that the three things that she does when there's a sickness are those first three there. The first is to strengthen the immune system. The second is to purify the blood. And the third is to take antibiotics. And using these things on our daughter was a little bit complicated because she was only maybe 16 or 18 months. And you can't eat everything when you're that young. And the hydrotherapy is a little bit different on a child, but as much as she could, she did a contrast bath of hot and cold on our daughter. And it was a blessing because our daughter was still nursing at that time, so she could get certain items through my wife, through her mother. And so these things also my wife was doing, eating more onions and garlics and cabbage to strengthen the immune system, and such things as echinacea tea. And to purify the blood, some of the herbs that are good for that are red clover and dandelion, using those as teas. And the antibiotics that my wife started taking and we gave our daughter was what we call the nature penicillin. And that was the recipe there. Those were the antibiotics that we took. And my wife also mixed some of these medicines into the food that our daughter was eating.
Just let's see the end of the last one and I put it down.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yes. All right. Just let me. Yeah. Well, while you're writing that, we can do something else. You got it? Yeah. All right. We'll wait for a moment there for Percy. This is something else we like. It's called green clay. This particular one is from France. And you can make that into a paste and do a mask on your face. You can make it into a paste and put on other parts of the body. We do poultices with it. And also we can use it in drinking to clean the colon and the stomach. And about a year and a half ago, I got a toothache, and I went to the tooth doctor, and she drilled in it, and suddenly a horrible smell came out, and I found out my tooth was rotten. It smelled terrible. And I have learned that I don't want to do a root canal, that's not good to do, so I told them to take it out. But even before I went to the tooth doctor, and while I was waiting, because they don't pull it out, they say come back in a week and we'll pull it out or something. Not quite sure why, but usually the gums swell, and what I was doing before and during that time and after was taking, this is just the green clay, but it's in chunks. You can buy it also in chunks, and I would put those in my cheek, and that would help to at least maintain the inflammation. Of course, you can do the powder and put it in a gauze, but it's a little bit more messy, and it was just easier to put these chunks in and not chew on them, but just let it dissolve, so it would stay there maybe an hour or 3 hours. And I was also eating the nature penicillin during that time to help maintain the infection or the inflammation, and never had to get the imitation penicillin, so to speak. I got the real thing. Yes. All right. So this was something, and also it was so interesting with our daughter. We put the garlic oil on her hand and up her arm. The garlic the pure olive oil, the garlic that sits in there, we put that also to help with the Lyme's disease. And also we cut up cabbage and onion and garlic in fine pieces. And, with the baby likes to just take everything off, so you can't put it on and make it stay. So what we did is we took a sock and filled it up with that and just put it up her whole arm. And she kept it on. She didn't take it off. And like a month later, when we were finished doing that, some nights she would go to sleep with a sock on. She would put a sock on herself when she was going to sleep. But that was a blessing for our daughter, putting the garlic and the onion and the cabbage on her arm and the sock. And by God's grace, she was healed of Lyme disease and has had no negative side effects or consequences from that, all through natural remedies. Glory to God. Amen. And about 3 months ago, our daughter got an ear infection. She was outside and it was cold out and she didn't have her head covered, and we had also been traveling and were kind of worn out in our immune systems and tired, and she got an ear infection. And some of the different remedies my wife was using for her were applying a baked onion to the outer ear, for example, doing poultices with the charcoal. We used some tea tree oil on the ear. The garlic oil, again, putting the golden seal, the herb golden seal and garlic oil, and mixing it and put it on a piece of cotton and putting it in the ear. And when she would have the head pain or pain in the ear, we would give her a hot foot bath. Now she's 5 and she can keep her foot in the water without a problem, and also blowing hot air with the hair dryer into her ear. And we also were giving her this nature penicillin and keeping her ears and her head covered. So she recovered from that, and God has given us these natural remedies to ease the suffering, to reduce the pain. So they're very good to have available to our knowledge. All right. My wife, 2 years ago, she was doing something in the garden, and eventually, because she was doing it so much, she got an infection under her fingernail, and it started to swell. And the doctor told her that it needed to be cut open and drained, and that she needed to take antibiotic. Well, she didn't do that, and she did take the nature penicillin, the real one, and the sore opened by itself, and about after 2 days it was better, and 3 days it was gone. All right, and my wife also had a dead tooth, and it was inflamed, and it's if you go to the dentist in Sweden at least, and you have an inflammation and the tooth's dead, they won't take it out. They say you need to get the inflammation to go down and then come back, and then we'll take it out. And of course you're in a lot of pain. But she was prescribed antibiotics, and she didn't take that. Rather, we went home and she made the nature penicillin and took that, and after some days, 14 days, we went back and the swelling was down, and she removed the tooth. Also put in charcoal and cotton swabs by the tooth, and that one was my experience there at the bottom. All right, so there are many opportunities for medical missionary work for us, and I don't know so much, but the beauty is that as we study, as we help people, we grow in grace and experience. So may God bless each one of us as we continue in His work and educate us and equip us to glorify Him. Thank you.